Hello everyone, this is Yorû here, and today I'm going to give you an introduction into texture editing and how to first of all set up your UV. So here we have a really simple Syndra model, which is just Judgment Syndra. And as you can see, she has 3 different models, which means I will need the textures from 3 different skins, of course. So what you first need to do to to create your UV is go onto poly modeling and then this thingy UV editor here. And you can already see that there are the white parts for the model, which is a UV, of course. And then there's a handy tool by Martin, which basically puts the UVs into one corner of the picture. You can only use this part of the whole thing for leak and can only have one. So yeah. So it's really easier if you first of all still have separated models. So you should do that always first before finishing the model completely. Like this is also not finished. I guess some parts aren't really connected and everything. So yeah. Sometimes the UV doesn't appear like here. Then you will go into UV sets. And usually it should work then. Okay, never mind, that's just a bug. But when there are 2 of those, and you can switch around on the bottom here, then there are 2 UV sets. And so what Martin's tool does is basically that. You first want to select all the UV parts, then you can just click and it will align it in the top right, top left. Then I'm gonna do the same thing for Kale, put her into the top right. And this works really well if you only have 4 different UVs, since you only have 4 corners. And for the Ash one, I'm just going to show you what else you can do to still keep the texture making somewhat simple. So you need the UV toolkit. So since I already have it, it says hide, but I just put it there. Yeah. So then you select it, you go to transform, then to tools, expand it, there's scale, you put in 0.5. Then you press it on there, and then you can just move it to an empty space. This helps you since I usually export my UV in 1024 pixels, usually the leak textures are 512 pixels, so it's already the right size. But yeah, since I have enough, since I only have 3 parts, I'm just gonna use this thing again and put it on the edge since it's easier. So, and then you have your thing, you select everything, go to image, UV snapshot, go to the folder where you want to save it to, and I'm just gonna call it UV. Then I'm usually using PNG, that's the size. You can also use 512 or 2048 if you want it to be more a bit HD. But it always ends up with this texture anyway, since I use waifu to X. And yeah, I just, then apply and close. Then you have here your PNG file of the UV. Then you can go, and as you can see now, the textures are messed up on here because the UV doesn't fit anymore. So I'm just gonna hide the textures. And then you want to combine the meshes. Mesh, combine, edit, delete, overtype history. And then you can export this object file. Okay, then you would also need Vuxi, or that's at least what I use, as it's the simplest. Then go Creation Studio, Model Viewer. Open that thing, and that's what I usually do, is just take the base texture and work on it. So yeah, the first tutorial on how to do this is going to be in Gimp. So first of all, you will need, of course, the DDS plugin for later. I'm going to link it down in the description and little instruction on how to install it. And then you can just drag your UV into here. Then first of all, I'm going to use the Syndra texture. Not load mipmaps. I don't know if the original has mipmaps, but it's just easier to not activate it, because mipmaps are like smaller sizes of the thing, so you would just have too many pictures basically. Then you have your texture, and as you can see, it is 512, which is nice. So now I put the head and the hair texture into the top upper right left corner. So now you want to use this tool, which is the alignment tool. You click on your layer, and then you want to use this one and this one. And now, as you can see, it perfectly matches the UV. Then you take the next texture, do it, then it doesn't select, which happens when the UV is on top of it sometimes. You just put it there. And then the last one. That's intriguing. Well, that's cool, I guess. Yeah, then we're just gonna skip that part. So let's just pretend the whole UV is already full, and now what you want to do is just export as, and then override the Syndra base file, because that's the one you loaded in Voxy. Then the compression is BC3DXT5, and you want to generate mipmaps. And the rest just leave it like that. Then you can here click on Update Textures, and it doesn't work properly for some reason. I'm getting really trolled right now. Oh, never mind. I'm not. I'm just stupid. Because if you just save it like that as a DDS, it's gonna save the top layer, which is scale in this case, and it's just gonna keep the size. So if you want to just check out one layer, you have to go to Layer and Layer to Image Size. Now it's the whole thing. Now you can just export it again, then you can update it, and then you have the whole image. Then if you have multiple layers and want to just see how they look, you can New from Visible, which is just gonna put all of them onto one layer. Then you can do that, and their face and hair. And the last thing you can do if you want to, which sometimes has to do with the layering options of layers, then you can just right click and merge it down. Then you have it on the same layer as well. And now I'm just gonna show you some really quick editing, because I would go too much into depth probably, and it just needs some getting used to texture editing in Gimp. So I'm just gonna show you how to do that quickly.
Microphone sound muted.
And just mute myself in TS before anyone comes. So what you want to do is, here's the hair. That's a really simple UV at least. Now you want to select the free select tool, and you can either use that if you only have one selection, but I usually always use this to just add stuff. So if you do that at first, then you can also do that and all of that stuff. So you just want to select all the UV parts which you want to change. For example, you don't want to change that because that's part of her neck. Then just connect it to a whole shape, I guess, and then press enter, then it's all selected. Now, you want to go under colors, and then, for example, hue saturation is a handy tool, because you can just change the color hue. For example, this is, I guess, brownish or something. You can make it purple and then just put some saturation on there and make it dark. And usually it gets really pixelated like that, so you have to be careful with that setting. What you can also use is the brightness and contrast, which helps if you, for example, want to turn something black, which I'm gonna do now. And I just put my Gimp on English, so I'm not used to it. And then colorize, which just changes the whole thing. So I'm just gonna make it black with a bluish tint, because that usually looks better a bit. And just make it dark. Let's go into colors again, bump up the contrast a bit. Maybe a bit much. Something like that maybe. Then I can export it again and just check it out. Yeah, I mean, it looks fine. It's a simple change. And yeah, so she would basically be done. Now I only have to see how I can do the ash part, which is her hip thingies here. Because I don't have any idea why this thing won't load. Maybe the name's weird? No. Okay, so yeah, I don't really know what happened. But yeah, that's how you can do a really basic texture. Which are also helpful tools, of course, is, for example, the smudge tool. If you just want to, for example, connect some textures together, which can just smudges them together, of course, and you can just make soft textures. Or, for example, it's really nice for skin tones. For example, if you have the head of a one champ and the neck of another one. And of course also the blur, which just makes everything blurry, as it says. And you have your normal paintbrush and eraser and all that stuff. That's a scale tool. You can just change the size of anything and type in the width if you need a specific one. Yeah, and that's it, I believe, for now. And I hope that helped you. See ya.